Hi, fifth graders. We're here today for chapter 5 of One Crazy Summer. Just to recap chapter 4 real quick, here's what we know so far. Once they arrived at Cecile's house in Oakland, it was out of place. It was a green stucco material, which might symbolize maybe how different Cecile is as a mother and a woman in general. Her house was like different than all the rest. Cecile kind of leaves them to their own devices that first night, and Delphine has to take on that role of mother again. And also, Cecile gives us some more context about her state of mind when she left the girls, muttering statements like, "Oh, I didn't even ask for you, I didn't want you," which were deeply hurtful to Delphine, but they didn't really entirely not expect her to be that way. Um, so yeah, that's where we're at. We're going to zoom in here to chapter 5. And so chapter 5 is called Mean Lady Ming. So we stood as one, looking up at her, me in the front, Vanetta and Fern at my sides. She was tall and broad-shouldered where Pa was just tall. As hungry as I was, all I could think of was that they made you dance with a boy in the 6th grade. That I would never look right dancing with a boy, and for that I had Cecile to thank. I spoke first. "We're hungry." As usual, my sister's voices followed on top of mine, and Vanetta said, "What's for supper?" And then Vern, "Hungry, hungry!" She rubbed her belly. We made a picture, us looking up at her and her looking down at us. In the animal kingdom, the mother bird brings back all she's gathered for the day and drops it into the open mouths of each of the birds squawking to be fed. But Cecile looked at us like it didn't occur to her that we would be hungry and that she'd have to do what mothers do, feed their young. I'm no big ma in the kitchen, but I could have at least opened a can of beans and fried up some franks. I can bake a chicken and boil potatoes. I would have never let my long-gone daughters travel nearly 3,000 miles without turning on the stove. She said, "What do you want from me?" "Supper," I answered. "It's past 8 o'clock. We haven't had real food since breakfast with Big Ma and Papa." I kept going. "That was," and I glanced at my wrist, 9 hours and 12 minutes ago. Here we go again with Delphine taking on that motherly role. She's also even being a little bit bold here to be almost like talking back to the mom. She must have learned this from Big Ma. She certainly is a strong-minded 11-year-old when she says things like, supper. She knows what she wants and she's sticking up for her sisters. Vanetta was next. "Airline food don't count," Fern last. "Surely don't." She was still looking down at us as if we'd thrown a monkey wrench into her quiet Tuesday evening, and then she spoke. "Where's the money your father gave you?" I crossed my arms. There was no way she was getting our money. "That money's for Disneyland," I told her, "to go on all the rides and to meet Tinkerbell." This was the first time we heard Cecile laugh, and she laughed like the crazy mother she was turning out to be. "Ha ha 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 ha! Is Tinkerbell going to feed you?" She was laughing still. We didn't think she was funny. We said nothing rather than talk back and get slapped, though. "Look," she said, "if you want to eat, hand over the money." I stared her down, something I never tried with Big Ma. Cecile didn't seem to care. She said, "Fine, I've got plenty of air sandwiches here. Go on back to your room, open your mouth and catch one." Ooh. So she's not gonna feed them? The stare down ended right there. I unlaced my right tennis shoe, wriggled my foot out, and removed the mound of 10s and 20s that Pa had given me. Cecile didn't care that the money had been baking under my foot since we'd left Brooklyn. She took the money, unfolded it, and counted the bills, then stuffed them into her pants pocket, except for a $10 bill, which she held out to me. "Go round the corner to Ming's, order a large shrimp lo mein." She counted our heads as if she didn't know how many of us she'd had. 4 egg rolls and a big bottle of Pepsi. Vanetta and Firm squealed for the shrimp and Pepsi. Right, so anyway, right here, this small action when she stares down when she stares down Cecile, something that she would never try with Big Ma, she said. Sometimes small actions can signal something big. So when she stared down Cecile, even though it didn't quite work, I'm thinking Delphine maybe backed down. Let's think about, why did she back down? She says the stare down ended right there. Probably it was because the mother said, "I'm not going to feed you then." So Delphine, again, was thinking about her sisters. She backed down, even though she was taking a stand. She backed down on account of not causing harm to her sisters. Time and time again, she's proving to be a really good big sister. Vanette and Fern squealed for the shrimp and Pepsi, forgetting that this was wrong. Our mother should have cooked real food for us, at the very least baked a chicken, made franks and beans. "Fruit punch," I said. "Big Ma don't allow us to have strong drinks." Cecile let out a signal whoop of a laugh. Vanetta and Fern were too excited about having takeout to see that our mother was crazy. I said, "We have to call Pa, let him know that we arrived." They chimed in, safe and sound, on the ground. Cecile said, phone's next to Ming's. You mean you don't have a phone? Vanetta asked. Cecile said, I don't have no one to call, and I don't want no one calling me. Whether Cecile had a phone was not my main worry. We have to go out after 8 to call Pa and get the food. Aren't you coming with us? Ming's is a couple blocks down Magnolia around the corner. She pointed out the direction. The phone booth's right there. When we were barely out the door, she added, and tell Ming to give you 4 plates, 4 forks, 4 napkins, and 4 paper cups. No sense dirtying dishes, and you're not coming inside my kitchen. We all looked at one another and thought the same thing. Crazy. I led the way into the direction Cecile pointed. Down the block, past the slumping palm tree, and made a right turn. Vanette and Fern, as usual, nipped the heels of my tennis shoes. It wasn't dark at all, but it wasn't high daylight either. Kids of all ages still ran around, playing in yards and riding bikes on the street. I bet kids ran around and played out here all year long and not only in the summer. We usually went to summer camp with the Y or drove down to Alabama in Papa's Wildcat. Ooh, here's a little challenge for you guys. I want you to Google and see what a Wildcat car looked like back in 1968 to get some visualization of how that would have looked. We came upon some kids playing freeze tag. They jumped from lively wiggle worms to frozen statues just as we neared their yard. We felt the smirks of the gaping statues on us. Vanetta smiled, welcoming their interest in us. She was scouting out new friends to be with for the next 28 days. I let her lag a step or two behind to wink and smile at them. It couldn't stop Vanetta from chasing after friends. Vanetta's emerging here is a little bit different from her other 2 sisters. I kind of wonder how this might play out in the future. Could there maybe be a rift on the horizon? She's always kind of looking for satisfaction or like popularity from others. I wonder how that might play out. Interesting thing to keep in mind. I kept walking, Fern sticking close to me. Vanetta skipped until she caught up. One thing was for sure, these blocks might have been long like the blocks on Herkimer Street, but we were far from Brooklyn. I didn't know where any of these streets led, but I walked down Magnolia like I knew I was going. I couldn't help but notice that not one yard had a palm tree, not one, or stucco. Not one house was painted that crazy green color. I was thinking this when behind us crept a rumbling against the concrete like a barrel rolling. The rolling was broken by the cracks in the sidewalk, and I turned. A voice yelled, "Gangway!" We tried to jump aside, but the 3 of us jumping all together only got us so far. A boy on top of a wooden board, this flying T with a tricycle wheels in the back, rumbled by and managed to clip me good. "Hey, watch out," I called after him, shaking my fist. He only stopped at the corner to pick up his flying T, carried it across the street, and lay it back down on the sidewalk. What is a flying T? I almost wonder if this is a scooter. "Sorry," he yelled without turning around, and then he gave it a running push and jumped on it, eventually lying stomach down, his arms outstretched as he held onto both ends of the T. What was that?" Vanetta asked. "Some stupid boy," I said. "Come on, y'all." I had to pull Vanetta's chin away from the direction of the boy on the flying T. She kept looking even after he was long gone. Ming's was where Cecile said it was, around the corner and a couple blocks down. And there was a big sign, Ming's, and underneath it, red neon characters that looked like fighting men waving swords. The telephone booth was also right where Cecile said it would be, underneath Ming's. I planned on calling Pa before getting the food, but the booth was already occupied by a light-skinned guy with a big floppy afro. He was turned sideways, but I could see his profile and his beakish nose. The way he pushed his head this way and that suspiciously while he talked. Maybe we should keep him tucked away in our mind there. This guy seems important, why the author kind of mentioned him as different and heading his head back and forth suspiciously. Let's keep him in our minds for a little bit later, maybe. We stood with our arms folded, waiting for him to finish. He looked like a fugitive from justice. I could spot one when I saw one. I love a good crime story, especially the FBI crime shows that come on late, and I sneak to watch whatever Big Ma falls asleep watching. That's how this guy looked, like he was calling his ma to see if his coast was clear to come home without the mob or the coppers on his tail. He saw us standing with our arms folded and turned his back to us. I got it. He had a lot of dimes and planned to use each one. We went inside Ming's. We were barely in the restaurant, which wasn't a restaurant, just a counter with a kitchen on the far side and 2 small tables with benches on our side. The Chinese lady behind the counter said, "No free egg rolls, no more free egg rolls," and she waved her hands like, "Shoo, stray cat." I didn't know how to answer. I didn't ask for any free egg rolls, but we were the only ones inside Ming's, and she was staring straight at me. Vanetta said, "We don't want free egg rolls," and Fern piped in, "We want shrimp lo mein and Pepsi." Vanetta said, "And 4 plates, 4 napkins, 4 forks, and 4 cups." Fern said, and 4 egg rolls. Vanetta, all for the money, not for free. Finally, I said, it's takeout to go. Interesting why Delphine wasn't the first one to speak up there, because she usually is. I uncurled the $10 bill to show her. Usually I'm Johnny on the spot, speaking up for my sisters and me, but this time I went blank for no reason I could think of. It was nice to have Vanette and Fern jump right in. It's an interesting little change there for Delphine. The lady shouted in Chinese to the back of the kitchen. She sounded even meaner than when she'd said no free egg rolls. I decided that just like Cecile was crazy, the Chinese lady was mean. Mean Lady Ming. She nodded to us and said, okay, sit. We sat down and we waited. Mean Lady Ming kept talking. Everybody poor, everybody hungry. I give free egg roll. Feel sorry. Then everyone come for free egg roll. Oh, so it sounds like the lady was being nice a while back, like in the past. She would give out free egg rolls to people who were maybe hungry, and then maybe the community took advantage of that, and then they would all come asking for free ones, and then she can't keep doing that forever. She muttered on like Cecile did and looked mean and tired like Big Ma looks on washboard days. While I was sitting with my sisters, I made up my mind about Oakland. There was nothing and no one in all of Oakland to like. I would get on a plane and fly back to New York if Big Ma showed up, one and her grandbabies. I wouldn't even tell Cecile thanks for the visit. So here, let's talk about Delphine's point of view a little bit. From her point of view, even though it's still early in the text, they just got to Oakland, she's made up her mind about the whole summer. She's like, you know what, this has been a bust. There's nothing good here for us. But as we know, at the beginning of a text, there's a lot of chapters left, a lot of summer left for her. Might this change possibly? Do we think that Delphine's point of view eventually will change about her whole time here in Oakland? And maybe about her mother in general? We'll see. So a couple questions here. Let's just summarize. Who was in this chapter and what new things did we learn about them? The same 3 girls. Something new we learned about them is sometimes Vanetta's a little bit of a different sibling than the other 2 girls. She kind of wants to catch the attention of others. And we also learned that sometimes Delphine does take a step back and doesn't always have the right thing to say. And also we learned about the Mean Lady Ming, the chapter title. We just met this new secondary character here. Okay, and what seemed important about the problem? Honestly, what seemed really important in this chapter was the emerging roles of the sisters and how they might change a little, with Vanetta kind of going with this way of trying to impress others and Delphine not always having the right thing to say. That seemed a little bit important because the characters were acting a little bit out of character there. And how does this connect to what we read earlier? This definitely connects right back to the last chapter where the mother kind of let them set up their room on their own, and then she just said, go on, get your own food. So how is the problem developing here? This is something we might want to think of. Was their first night in Oakland what they expected it to be like? Is this how they envisioned it? Was the mother cooking a nice chicken or making franks and beans for them? Or on the other hand, did she just kind of send them out to discover the world of Oakland on their own? All right, so take a moment and think about that, maybe jot it down, and we'll continue again with chapter 6 in the future. Okay, bye everyone. Have a good afternoon or morning, whatever time of the day you're listening to this.